All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're tackling something that gets to the very heart of, well, us. It's all about the tangled, fascinating relationship between what we feel and what we choose to do. We're going to move way beyond that old cliche of the head versus the heart and really dig into what the science has to say. You know this feeling, right? We've all been there. You're facing a big decision, and you feel like you're being pulled in two completely different directions. One part of your brain has this neat, tidy, logical list of pros and cons, but then there's this other part, a powerful, undeniable gut feeling. So who wins? And more importantly, who should win? It's a classic internal struggle, but it turns out the way we even think about that struggle is probably wrong. So let's start with the classic view, the story most of us know. For a long, long time, the most popular idea was that our brain is basically split down the middle, with two systems constantly at war with each other. It's a story that makes a lot of sense on the surface, but it's not the whole story. Not even close. And here it is, this supposed battle within. You got reason over on one side. It's the cool, calculating, logical part of you, the Spock. And on the other side, you have emotion, the hot-headed, impulsive, automatic part, the Hulk. For centuries, the narrative has been that these two are just fighting it out for control of the steering wheel. One is smart, the other is, well, kind of dumb. And that simple story is exactly where modern science starts to poke some serious holes. Okay, but what if this changes everything? What if it's not a fight at all? We've been buying into this idea of an internal war for generations. But what the science is showing us now is something totally different. It's a relationship that looks less like a battle and a whole lot more like a partnership. So let's get into the new way of thinking, the modern scientific understanding, which gives us a much richer and honestly more interesting picture. This isn't about a fight for control. It's about a deep, complex dance where our emotions are actually helping to shape and inform our rational mind. The really key idea here, which comes from a landmark paper by Elizabeth Phelps and her colleagues, is something they call a modulatory relationship. It's a great term. It means your emotions don't just show up and try to hijack your rational brain. No, they modulate it. They tune it, they adjust it, they influence the very calculations you're making. Your feelings become an essential piece of the data, not just some annoying background noise. So how does this actually play out? Well, the research shows two main ways this happens. First, you've got these feelings that just carry over. Maybe you had a terrible, stressful commute to work. That lingering anxiety can then color how you see a totally unrelated choice, making a business proposal, for instance, seem way riskier than it actually is. And second, your immediate emotional hit from the choice itself becomes part of its value. That little flutter of excitement you feel when thinking about a vacation, or the pit in your stomach when you consider a risky investment, that's not a distraction. That's your brain factoring the feeling itself into the equation. Now, to really, really get how this works, we need to peel back another layer. We need to look at the very building blocks of our feelings, things like pleasure, desire, and dread. How does the brain even cook up these states that have so much influence over us? This is so cool. Researchers like Kent Berridge and Morton Kringelbach found something mind-blowing. Our brains handle liking and wanting in two totally separate systems. Liking is that pure, simple, feeling of pleasure. It comes from these tiny little pleasure generators, these hedonic hotspots. But wanting is a whole different animal. It's the drive, the motivation, the craving, and it's run by a huge, powerful, sprawling network in the brain. And here's the kicker. Because they're separate, you can want something, want it intensely, without even liking it that much. And this quote just says it all. It shows you how much the science is turning old ideas on their head. For decades, we all learned about the brain's pleasure centers, like the dopamine system. But this research basically says, hold on a second. Those systems might not be about pleasure or liking at all. They're about motivation. They're the engine of wanting. They make us go after things, but they aren't necessarily the things that make us feel good when we get them. It's a subtle change, but it changes everything. Okay, so we've got these two big ideas floating around now. We've got emotion modulating reason, and we've got this wild split between liking and wanting. So how do we stitch it all together? Well, it turns out there's this one elegant and really powerful metaphor that connects them: the affective keyboard. Burrage and Kringleback discovered that a part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens acts just like a musical keyboard. It's amazing. If you stimulate the neurons at one end of this structure, you get intense motivation, what you could call desire. But if you stimulate the neurons at the other end, you get this profound sense of fearful dread. It's the same physical structure, but depending on which keys you press, it can play two completely different tunes: motivation or fear. And this is the absolute kicker. What tunes this keyboard? What decides which song it plays? Your environment, the world around you. They saw this happen in real time with lab rats. You put a rat in its safe, comfortable home cage, and the part of its brain that generates desire, the wanting keys, it actually expands. But then you move that same rat to a stressful place, a bright, loud, unfamiliar lab, and the keyboard physically retunes itself. The desire zone shrinks way down, and the dread zone gets way bigger. Your surroundings are literally physically changing your brain's capacity to feel desire versus fear. It's unbelievable. So let's pull it all together. It was never a simple battle between reason and emotion. It's so much more dynamic than that. It's more like a performance. Your brain is the instrument, this incredible affective keyboard. And the world around you, your context, your mood, your stress levels, that's what's constantly tuning the instrument, changing the kind of music it can even play. And listen, this isn't just some abstract lab science. This has massive real-world impact. It explains, finally, why just being in a bad mood can make you play it safe, or why feeling good can make you more generous. It gives us a brand new way to think about addiction, which is really a disease of pathological wanting, where that motivation system goes into overdrive, even when the liking, the actual pleasure, is long gone. And it helps us understand devastating disorders like anhedonia, a key symptom of depression, which we can now see as a breakdown in the brain's liking and pleasure circuits. So, we started this whole journey thinking about a simple fight between the head and the heart, but what we found is something so much more profound. It's not a fight, it's a performance, played on this incredibly complex instrument inside your skull that's being tuned constantly by the world you live in, which leaves us with one last big question. If your brain is the keyboard for desire and dread, who or what is the piano player?